Twice as tall.
Yeah.
Burna Boy's fourth album.
Yeah.
Was it worth it?
Yes, it was totally worth it. I think from a larger perspective, it underlined the creative peak of an artist who understands himself. He had a goal in mind. More than anything, he had a goal in mind, and he brought himself out to achieve that goal. That album, much more than anything, is a Grammy move. There's nothing about that album. Everything about that album suggests that this is what I want to achieve, and I'm going to achieve it. And more than anything, I think it's to Burna Boy's credit that he went back in after he really wanted to win a Grammy Award for African Giant. Everything towards it suggested I would have really loved to do that. Before the awards, he performed at the pre-Grammy party, and before the awards, he released a picture. And even after he lost the award, we didn't see Burna Boy on social media for a while. He didn't even post pictures. So until we saw him with Angelique Kidjo, and then on the album he said it that he was vomiting, he was throwing up. He had him throwing up. He almost had him envious. It shook him a lot because I will understand it. And even on his Breakfast Club interview, he was saying that he wanted to win it not for himself but for his people. Even though I don't necessarily agree with that as facts only, because nobody you will do it. Your people will celebrate it, but I think it's for you. It's not for anybody else.
Nobody's losing sleep.
No, but at the same time, we are going to celebrate it because all of us, we all are weak that night because we really wanted him to win us because it's Nigerian and it's African. It's one of us at the end of the day, so we really wanted him to win. So credit to him to recalibrate and say, oh, this is what it is, and then I'll go again. Then he sent out a tweet in March 2020 that is his musical mother, quote unquote, Angelique Kidjo, imbued in it. She taught him a lot of things about, and I think some of the things that he did as regards the PR move and the optics as regards this album were led to the creativity and the creative process behind this album. So it's amazing that someone could be so driven by the idea of winning something like this, and then brought Diddy into it. Mike Dean produced on it. Yusuf Undop, someone that I really wanted to work with for a long time, was on it. Not by nature, people that he has quoted on several interviews as inspiring his early days as a rapper, was also on it. There was Salty Soul on it. Even though I think a song like Wonderful and a song with Salty Soul have just forced Africanism, because if you want to create music as an African, you don't have to be humming like you're on a plantation. You can make music as an African without humming and pouring and making sounds like monkey. It's forced Africanism. The aesthetics are unnecessary. I understand it from a strategic perspective. It makes sense because it's the idea of Africanism that people in diaspora love. For example, members of the Recording Academy, when they say, "Oh, that's Africa," that's the aesthetic they want to see. That's what they like. So from perspective,
it
fits the stereotype for them. So from strategy perspective, it makes sense. But if you're an African giant, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. Buy into a stereotype. So it's unnecessary.
Okay, let's talk about his move for a Grammy. Where he changed the direction of the album. We talked about the aesthetics and everything he did. Like his single like Wonderful, the video. Playing into the African stereotype.
Yes.
Don't you think it will affect his home base? Because African Giants had a single like Killing Them.
Yes.
That pushed it on the local scene. Which song? Do you expect a song from this album to hold it down for Burna Boy here in Nigeria?
Yeah.
Why he go chase his Grammy? Or you don't expect, if there's no song to hold it down for him, how is he going to keep his fan base?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good question because more than anything, this album was created with a global gaze.
Yeah.
You saw a song like Way Too Big, which was recorded which sounds really dated. It was teased on the IG live battle between Lyric and Chopsticks. Yeah. At the end of it, you had a Mike Dean guitar solo on it. Yeah. And then, but a song like Bebo and a song like Koma, they sound very Afro-pop-ish. But are they going to be pushed as single? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Yeah. But then, is it going to affect his fan base on the home front? Maybe not necessarily. Maybe not necessarily. Here's why. Because
the reason I'm saying is we all know what Killing Them did for Burna Boy.
Yes, it did a lot.
Killing Them and the whole singles that came did a lot established him as an artist, as an elite artist alongside Wizkid and Davido.
Yes.
But right now, no matter what happens on the other side, he still has to pay attention to what's happening here, so he doesn't lose. There's still that December concert to do. Although he's in Lagos, everybody will go to it, but he's still paying attention to it. Which do you predict? Like you've predicted singles that will come here. Is there anyone that you think will be popular in Nigeria?
Like I said, it depends on what they push. For example, there are songs on that entire album that sound very Afropop-esque. A song like Debo, there's Comma on it. There is Way Too Big, Afropop. There is, which other song is Afropop-ish there? There is Onyeka, Baby, bracket Baby. Yeah. But the problem is, so there's this thing about music. If you listen to an album like a Wizkid Superstar, you would listen to the album and say, oh, this is an African album, it's a Nigerian album. And it's about the subconscious. What does the music tell you when you listen to it? When you listen to it twice as long, it's not telling you that it's an African album. More than anything, I think it's just going to affect the perception of Burna Boy in the eyes of fans. People are going to look at Burna Boy and say, oh, he might not necessarily be making music just for us anymore. But is that going to be a negative connotation for Burna Boy going forward? I don't think so. Because why? Burna Boy still makes music like a Nigerian. Even though the sound and the approach, the mixing, so the way they mixed some of those songs, they were not engineered for the Nigerian market. The drums were not exactly amplified like they would be on an Afropop record. The way his voice was mixed, they didn't mix it exactly like an African artist. They mixed it differently. It was unique the way they mixed it. But then the way he delivered, the language with which he delivered it, very, very predominantly and fundamentally African and Nigerian. He was talking about Comma. Comma is a Port Harcourt slang. He was talking about the line that he dropped on one of those songs where the line that people thought was homophobic. That's a Port Harcourt thing that alludes to factual statements or a lack of hypocrisy. So you can't necessarily say that. We can't say that. I mean, there'll be that part, but it won't be as pronounced to affect Burna Boy either long and short term. Because at the end of the day, a song like Ye, as much as it's not Afrobeats, at the start, it took a while before that song caught fire in the Nigerian industry. People on Twitter loved it. Yeah. People on social media loved it. But it took a while. Soccer was a song early in that year. Yeah. But by the time that song really caught up, it really did catch up, rather. So I don't think it's the approach to this album will affect Burna Boy negatively. I think what could affect Burna Boy negatively is if he pushes the wrong single and expects Nigerians to really like it. For example, A Wonderful is not catching fire. Yeah. No, it's not. It's not catching fire like, say, Ye did catch fire. It's not catching fire like On The Low caught fire. Yeah. It's not catching fire like Killing Them caught fire. It's not catching fire like a lot of his previous singles have caught fire over the past 2 years. It's not even catching fire like Dangote caught fire. Yeah. So, it shows you that the approach to it might not necessarily like it. Okay.
Do you expect him to come back for the Nigerian base when he wins his Grammy? What do you think his next approach?
That's a good question.
What do you think his next approach is going to be?
I wouldn't say that. I think the mind of a creative is wired to conquer new horizons. So the things I have not done before, you might want to do them again. Let's look at Wizkid. The only reason Wizkid came back to the Nigerian music industry to release singles like Fever, like Soccer, like all those was because his Western sojourn didn't exactly turn out as many of us hoped it to turn out.
Davido too.
Davido, you don't have to look at Davido too.
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, Davido signed a record deal with Sony. The first record deal with Sony. Sony didn't work. He had to get himself out of that record and came back to Nigeria and had a ridiculous run in 2017. He said it on his interview with Ibro that he didn't expect Fall. When he expected Fall to catch fire, he didn't catch fire. Fall was catching fire like 10 months. What am I saying? 18 months after he dropped. And it was catching fire on airplay there. People were, he didn't expect. They had to then call him back and take him on a radio tour at the time. Another radio tour. After he had dropped 4 singles and you guys didn't even realize that he dropped them. So as much as anything, I don't think So with Burna Boy, with Davido, it's because those ones didn't work. Son of Mercy didn't really work. That was meant to be his international app, and international move. He didn't really catch right, it didn't work. Sounds from the other side, it didn't work. Simple. But with Burna Boy, if he wins a Grammy, that's just telling Burna Boy that okay, I'm doing something right.
Okay, so apart from the whole PR moves, the management moves, musically, what's the difference? What did Burna Boy do differently from Davido and Burna Boy and Whiskey?
That's it. So I was having a conversation with someone recently, and the theory that the person, not theory, it's a fact. Burna Boy, the major thing that stands Burna Boy out from anybody in his generation is that he has an expansive sonic palette. The things that Burna Boy can do, nobody else in his generation can do them. And that's facts only. You can't try them. Because look, what Burna Boy did on a song like Heaven's Gate, nobody can attempt it in his generation. I mean, all the other people in his generation would excel in their own way on different things. Maybe they might even do certain things that Burna Boy can do. Yeah. But for all of them, I don't see anything that they do that Burna Boy can do. The only thing that they can do, the only difference is that a lot of the things that Burna Boy can do and excel on, they cannot excel on them in the way that Burna Boy does some of those things. So when Wiz and David and some of these other boys were being prodded and pushed by foreign music capitalism, and it's not their fault. We have to look at Whiskey and Davido. They were huge.
Too big.
They were too big.
Way too big.
They had bars only. So these guys were too big on this continent. They had achieved everything achievable, and it got to a point where they are going to look at what next can we do? Let's conquer the foreign frontier. And the foreign market was open to, the foreign labels were open to experiment with them. It didn't really work out.
So maybe how they vary in terms of the video Whiskey and Burna Boy is that Burna Boy didn't go for that sojourn as the biggest.
That's the fact. That's what I was getting to. Like, those guys walked. They were pushed, and they were giving some of these major interviews, the major circuits, the tours. They were doing some of the biggest things, and it was good for them. But then at the same time, it was also too early for them. They became forerunners. If Burna Boy had done it at the time that those guys had done it, there are chances that he would have ended up like them, because it was harder at that time to do what they did. They set the pace for him. They set the ground for him to do some of the things that he was able to do. Aside the fact that he had talent, they were his forerunners. So, but while those guys were doing that, Burna Boy was gathering his own pace slowly. He was performing small events across, 100 people here, I'm going there to perform. 500 people there, I'm going there to perform. 600 people, no, I'm coming there to perform. He wasn't really performing at the O2, he wasn't performing at Wembley when some of those guys were performing there. He wasn't selling some of the biggest places out, but he was building himself gradually. And by the time they were ready for him, by the time the industry was ready for an African star, it fell. And he, as a talented guy that he is, he crystallized at the work from. Simple.
Going back to Twice as Tall,
yes.
What's your favorite feature, and what do you think about the features on the album?
The features on the album were carefully selected. For the most part, I think the A&R on that album was superb. It was an amazing. Burna Boy that's a trifecta for Burna Boy in terms of A&R. As much as I don't like Outside, I don't like Outside at all. But you can't deny the impact that album had. And even though I don't like it, I listened to that album and said, the A&R of this album is good. They didn't get it right. They didn't get some of the sounds right. But at the same time, I see what they are trying to do. So the music wasn't as good as maybe as African Giants and Twice as Tall, but the music was good on its own. So with Twice as Tall now, the features on Twice as Tall are so carefully selected. But my favorite on that was Stormzy on Real Life. You know why? Because Stormzy is a rapper and he was singing on the Burna Boy. That's amazing. Used to do is the vocal performance. That was amazing. The problem I have, the Salty Soul song is better than Twice as Tall is better than the Salty Soul song. Time Flies is better than Wonderful. but both of them fall into the same forced Africanism perspective. So there was no feature that really was unnecessary.
Okay.
For the most part, Burna Boy went at the album on his own. So I would say, then Diddy, when Diddy did come on the projects, even when his mom had the interpolated some of his mom's speech, that was amazing. You can't really fault anything that they did.
Okay, so this all ties into who Burna Boy is.
Yes.
How great now with everything he has achieved, even before the Grammy. Let's just say he wins the Grammy,
yes.
like we expect him to do.
Yes.
Because Akijo kind of like crowned him as the next.
Yes.
Which
was nice, by the way.
Yeah, which was nice too. So let's wish him luck. He's going to win the Grammy, right? How great do you think Burna Boy is in terms of perspective of Nigerian music?
That's a really good question. Again, the idea is very simple. A lot of people, let's look at what greatness is. What is greatness? Greatness is a summation of everything you've done throughout your career. As much as a Grammy nomination or a Grammy award is great, is really great, it is one metric in judging greatness. So if say we have 10 things that you can judge greatness on.
Greatness.
The Grammy Awards is one. So the only reason that a Grammy Award might count over something else is if there are two competing metrics from one artist and another artist. And you're looking at, oh bro, it's the Grammy Awards. Let's go with the Grammy. The Grammy is too huge. So with Burna Boy, the Grammy is not the only thing that Burna Boy has done in his career. Burna Boy has been his first two mixtapes were released in 2011. Born Identity and Born Notice. But Burna Boy is like Xavi Hernandez. Who is Xavi Hernandez? He's the Barcelona great and Spain great, World Cup winner, Euro winner. But for the first, say, 12, 11 years of Xavi's career, we knew he was talented. But Xavi didn't really break into genuine superstardom until Euro 2008. And from Euro 2008 onward, Xavi basically wrote himself into the history books as arguably the greatest midfielder of all time. You might not agree, I don't agree, but if someone says it, you understand why they are saying it. So with Burna Boy, he's using his peak like almost nobody has ever used it. But then you can't cancel the first 6-7 years of the past decade, because the first 6 years of the past 6-7 years of the past decade were heavily dominated by three artists: Wizkid, Davido, and Olamide. What those guys did, Burna Boy was in and around those circles, but the gap between them at that time was just too much, and that's facts with me. The gap was too wide. But then what Burna Boy has been able to do over the past 2 years has been to bring himself and close some of that gap. By far in that generation, Wizkid is still the greatest. By far. Is Burna Boy great? Yes. Is he greatest of that generation? No, not yet. If Burna Boy is going to be the greatest of that generation, he will have to be on this run for another 2 or 3 years. If he gets, after this Grammy nomination, that gap is going to be really closed up. Really closed up. But if he gets another Grammy, or if he releases 2 other critically acclaimed quality bodies of work like African Giants and Twice as Tall, then we are going to be having a different conversation in 2 or 3 years. Because you really can't say what Burna Boy is and what Burna Boy is not. The trifecta that he has done from outside African Giant and Twice as Tall, in terms of bodies of work in his generation, only Olamide can lay claim to it. But even Olamide had Rhapsody, YBNL, and Baddest Guy Ever Lived. Burna Boy had outside African Giants and Twice as Tall. Rhapsody is not on the level of outside in terms of quality, in terms of bodies of work. He had big records.
You guys ignore Burna Boy's the first album, like.
Burna Boy's life is slightly overrated. Okay. I'm not saying it's a bad album. So people tend to think overrated as a bad rep, and people overrate the word overrated because they think if you are saying something is overrated, then it means it's bad. Overrated simply means you're rating it beyond the level that it should be. It's a good album, but there were a lot of throwaways on the album, some mid records. It's not on the level of African Giant. 19 songs, flames. Even the song with Future and YG that we didn't like, we were not skipping them when we got there. More life. So the judgment of the average album is, you judge them not by the stands, you judge them by the average listener. So if you want to get the interest of the average listener, or maybe a critic, then you go to a critic and ask them what it is. So for what Burna Boy is in terms of the trifecta, back to the trifecta that we were talking about, nobody has that trifecta run. It's too crazy. And those things have counted Burna Boy. They have counted a lot significantly in his favor in terms of greatness. So how great is Burna Boy now? Burna Boy is great. But could he be the greatest? Yes. What does it have to be? He needs another 2-3 years on this level. That's facts on it.